Did it ever cross your mind that Rukia joining Ichigo against Yhwach might actually be setting up a larger narrative function that has yet to fully come into play? Because the manga never staged this confrontation this way. In Yhwach's throne room, Orihime was the only character fighting alongside Ichigo, using Santen Keshin, her rejection shield, to block Yhwach's attacks and protect him. But by inserting Rukia into that confrontation, the anime creates a narrative reconstruction that establishes two functional roles. Ichigo and Rukia become the two characters, directly confronting Yhwach, while Orihime remains the one protecting them through rejection. And while Ichigo and Rukia's confrontation with Yhwach is brief, the way the anime deliberately stages them together starts to read as the setup planted in Urahara's words. "I'm sorry to leave the rest up to you like this, Mr. Kurosaki, Miss Kuchiki, everyone," singling out both Ichigo and Rukia, with that foreshadowing line beginning to pay off. And it's during that confrontation that Rukia creates an opening for Ichigo's attack by freezing Yhwach's attack, a power Yhwach finds interesting enough to comment on, yet one he also observes appears to shackle her ability to fight alongside Ichigo, creating a narrative constraint within that pairing, a limitation that may trace back to the way Sode no Shirayuki's true power lowers Rukia's own body temperature, restricting how long she can remain fully functional at its extremes. Yet that scene may plant the question of whether Yhwach recognized something unusual about Rukia's power, something that may be recontextualized if her ability serves a narrative function by interfering with Yhwach's ability, in a way this first encounter only begins to hint at. Especially as Haschwalth remaining in that transformed state, described as a vessel for Yhwach's power, seems to imply that the Almighty was still entrusted to him during Yhwach's confrontation with Rukia, only returning to Yhwach after Uryu used his shrift, the antithesis, to strip Haschwalth of his Quincy power, which would restore Yhwach's ability to alter the future. And because Rukia is a character who was once human, the same origin shared by spiritually aware humans, such as Fullbringers and Quincy's, her unresolved origin may itself be interconnected with a final arc and the story's central conflict, creating the possibility that her placement in this confrontation may not yet have reached the full narrative function implied by its setup. And it is Rukia, the Shinigami who triggered the awakening of Ichigo's power. Another scene that may be recontextualized if her origin is revealed in the anime, because what ties Ichigo and Rukia together may not only be their encounter, but could also extend to a shared progenitor in Yhwach. If Rukia is ultimately revealed to be Quincy, that origin may also recontextualize Orihara's decision to hide the Hōgyoku inside Rukia in the first place, raising the possibility that her Quincy origin was part of why he chose her specifically. A plotline that is still unresolved, even though Aizen implied that the Hōgyoku had been concealed inside Rukia before the story even began. Because while he may have explained how the transfer of power to Ichigo happened, through the Hōgyoku responding to Rukia's deepest desire born from the guilt she carried over killing Kaien, Aizen may still function as an incomplete narrator. He answers how the transfer of power happened, but not why Rukia was chosen as the one to conceal the Hōgyoku inside in the first place. And that reason could extend beyond Rukia's established background, potentially tying back to her origin, perhaps even making her the most compatible vessel, and extending to why Orihara later singles out Ichigo and Rukia before the anime stages them together against Yhwach. And Orihara is positioned as a character who knows more than he says. So if the Hōgyoku was concealed inside Rukia during her first visit to the human world, sometime after the Auswählen, then that decision begins to interconnect with the final arc. It could become part of Orihara's preparation for multiple possibilities, waiting for Aizen to make the first move, sending Rukia to Karakura town, awakening Ichigo's powers and setting the chain of events into motion, while at the same time positioning Rukia alongside Ichigo for a narrative function that the final arc may now be beginning to bring into play. And what makes the anime's additional content of Rukia, fighting alongside Ichigo against Yhwach, start to read as more than an additional fight sequence, is that it may finally be the first step toward revealing what the manga left unresolved. So if the entire Bleach story was leading up to the final arc, could Rukia's unresolved plotline be one of the earlier storylines, whose foreshadowed elements are now appearing in the anime's final arc? Thank you for watching. Do you think stories ever truly end? Or do they always leave us searching? One story at a time, one sip at a time, until next time.